Welcome back, everybody. Well, as the country is in various states of reopening, that poses a lot of challenges for employees, whether you're heading back into the office or you're continuing to work from home. So, here with the new rules of employment, lawyer Lily Coodin joins us. Hi, Lily.
Hi.
Okay, so the question is supposed to be like, we are in a new sort of employment and workforce landscape. And the question is, what's changed? But I want to know what hasn't changed about the new employment landscape.
Basically, everything has changed. The pandemic has really upended our lives so much. And for many people, one of the most significant ways their lives have changed is in terms of their employment. We've seen mass layoffs, businesses closing or shifting their workforce. And we've seen people scrambling to work from home who are normally working from offices. The laws that we have to deal with employees and employers were developed a long time ago, and they weren't designed with a global pandemic in mind. So, for that reason, people have a lot of questions as we continue to navigate this very complicated time.
Yeah, and Lily, I've got another question for you, and it has to do with vacation time. What can employers demand, and what can't they?
Yeah, I mean, vacation days are one of the many casualties of the pandemic. A lot of people are saying, why would I use a vacation day to sit at home on my computer when I could be working just sitting at home on my computer? But when it comes to vacation days, for most of us, our employers do get the final say as far as when and how your vacation days are used. So they may say you have to use them all by X date, or you can carry over 2 days, but not 3 days, if any, to next year. And we know this because for a lot of people, we have to actually submit a request for a vacation day that has to be approved, even if that usually seems like a rubber stamp. So you should expect your employer to have the final say when it comes to how and when you use your vacation. One of the exceptions is if in your employment contract, it actually spells out how you can use your vacation. So it may say it's completely at your discretion. It may tell you exactly how many days you can carry over. And in that case, the contract would dictate. But otherwise, expect your employers to have the final say.
So recently, the federal government announced that they're going to be moving the emergency payments, benefit payments, over to EI, and they say it's going to make it a little bit more accessible. Will that, or how will that affect who is eligible then to receive it?
Yeah, now the EI system is one of those things that was developed decades ago when the workforce looked different than it does today. We have far more part time and contract employees. We have a gig economy that was unheard of at the time. So the federal government has announced that they are going to be getting rid of the CERB and migrating everyone over to the employment insurance system. But at the same time, they're going to be updating some of these definitions that allow you to qualify for EI to kind of bring them into the 21st century. So, what is that going to look like? We don't exactly know at this point. So, we're waiting for an announcement. But it's safe to say that if you currently qualify for the CERB, that does not necessarily mean that you will qualify under the new EI rules that are coming. So, make sure you're paying attention to those.
Okay, a lot of us are working from home, Lily. So if I'm working from home right now, as I am, can my employer decide that they want to keep me doing that, keep me working remotely permanently?
Yeah, we've heard of this happening. Technology companies, especially, that were in a very good position to have their employees keep working from home. And they've really started to reevaluate their office needs. The thing about where you work, whether it's in an office or from home, is that it's generally considered to be a core term of your employment. That's to say, it really goes to the heart of the agreement that you made with your employer. And when we have core terms like that, we don't like to let employers change them unilaterally. That is, without giving you the opportunity to negotiate for something else in return, because a lot of people don't want to keep working from home. And so you should have the right to negotiate. If this happens to you, you want to make sure you speak with a labor and employment lawyer who can look at your contract and discuss the best options with you. It may be that you're fine to keep working from home, but you want to get, a budget to set up a proper office or an ongoing technology budget. Those kinds of options should all be looked at in order to get the situation that works best for you and your employer.
What about the reverse scenario, Lily? What if I'm working from home and my workspace is reopening and I'm not comfortable with that? I'm not comfortable returning to work. What are employees' rights around that?
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable going back to work or who even have started saying, wait a minute, I can do my job without a commute, without packing lunch, without often changing out of pajamas, and they want to keep working from home. So, this is sort of the flip side of the question where just as we don't want to let employers make unilateral changes to important contractual terms, we also don't like to let employees do that. So, just because your employer allowed you to work from home during the pandemic does not necessarily mean that they have to do that on an ongoing basis. They do have to provide you with a work environment that is safe and healthy. But as long as they're doing that, in most cases, they can require you to go back to the office. So you can ask to keep working from home remotely, but it would be at their discretion.
Okay, let's talk about expenses now because a lot of people are incurring more or different expenses. Maybe they're setting up a home office, they're getting some stuff for their house, setting up a new studio in your basement. And I want to know, can I claim any of these expenses on my taxes?
So the tax rules are another place where, we have these rules that were developed years ago that did not contemplate the kind of mass working from home that we're seeing today. So in general, they have not allowed employees to easily claim expenses for working from home. One of the ways that you may be able to qualify is if you do more than 50% of your work from home. And so for those of us who work, a day here, a day there from home, usually we don't come close to meeting the definition. But now that we're going on half a year in this pandemic, we may suddenly start to see more people qualifying. So if you are an employee who qualifies, you will need to enlist the help of a professional, an accountant in your area, because the definitions in this area are very nuanced. So if you qualify, you may be able to claim the expenses relating to maintaining the part of your house that you're using for an office. So it may be 10% or 20% of your house. And there are certain other things, utilities, there are some kinds of office supplies you can claim, but you definitely want to make sure that you have a professional helping you and that you're keeping very good track of all of these expenses.
Okay, another thing that we're dealing with that is quite major is reduced salaries, Lily, and whether employers can cut your salary either by maybe reducing hours or accounting for lower costs of living if you're maybe commuting from a suburb to the downtown core. Is that allowed?
Yeah. So, like where you work, how much money you make is really a core term of your contract. Some people will have provisions in their contracts that provide a pay scale that explicitly say if you live in this metropolitan area, you'll make X dollars. And if you move out, you'll make 10% less. But most of us don't have terms like that in our contract. So we don't like to let employers make these changes without negotiating. But the practical reality is that if you are not happy with the lower salary that you're offered, your remedy would be to treat your contract as though you've been terminated. So you might have the right to severance or termination pay, but then you would find yourself without a job. And in this climate where we have higher than usual unemployment, depending on your circumstances and the industry you're in, you may not want that. So it's another really good time to speak with a labor and employment lawyer who can look at your contract and who can try to figure out if there is common ground. Maybe you would take a lower salary in exchange for fewer hours or other kinds of benefits. These are all things that should be looked at.
Okay, as we've seen around the world, there has been a sweep of protests of all kinds. For example, with the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's say you attend a protest, you get arrested. Is this going to impact your employment?
For a lot of people, getting arrested is something that would have to be reported. So if you work at a daycare, for example, or you work with other vulnerable populations, often you will be required to disclose things like arrests on an ongoing basis. If that's not written in your contract, then it's sort of a gray area that depends on, the circumstances and the context. This is one case where facts really matter. Were you protesting peacefully and you got arrested, or were you looting a store and you got arrested? Because those are two very different things. Anytime you get arrested, you will have a criminal lawyer, and you should definitely be asking them if, in this case, in your circumstances, this is something that would need to be reported.
Woo! Navigating all these new legal landscapes. Lily, thank you so much for your knowledge. We appreciate you. We've got a lot more after the break. Don't go anywhere.